My name is Ben Cathers, a senior solution consultant for Hootsuite, and I have the unique fun role of every week hopping on a plane or a train and meeting with some of the world's largest governments and agencies and tourism groups and really helping them understand the best values of social media, best practices, best training, and so forth. And today, this is going to be a session all about really helping how to really maximize your social content strategy, your content management framework. Tomorrow I'll be talking about some of the best ways to do new social measurement, ROI, and this is really today focused on the best ways to organize content, source content, and really figure out the best ways to just organize it among everybody in here. So what we're going to talk about today is why social and content management actually matters. Why are we all here doing this? Some of the best practices on being able to create your social content calendars, a whole strategy about effective scheduling, monitoring hashtags, assignments, security, and then some of the best ways to simplify content curation. And hoping to leave about 10 minutes or so for questions, so feel free to pick my brain, and really looking forward to just sharing some of the best practices I learned from our clients. So taking a whole step back of why are we here, everybody here is social media, we're all professionals in this, but it's always good to kind of do that reminder of what is the value of social. And what it is it's the new front door. It's the place where your customers seek, they discover, they find, and they want to engage with you. 10, 15 years ago, all of our marketing practices, that was focused on building destinations for stores, building destinations for marketing collateral and postcards, and really getting people excited about big front page ads in there. And then 10 years ago got changed, and it was email marketing, it was search engine marketing. Let's get the #1 listing on a Google result. Let's blast emails every week about our destinations or where we're looking to do then. And what we've seen in the past few years is social has overtaken that. Social has now overtaken search in terms of traffic sources for some of the largest governments, for some of the largest social tourism organizations out there. And one of the things that we find out is that social is influencing 57% of the decisions in the practice today. So this is now the new way that people are doing their research, and more often than not, you're getting more intelligent buyers, more strategic people doing that, and it's all happening on social. That's the real-time environment for discovering information today. And the state of social, it's an explosion. It started off a few years ago when we said, okay, raise my hand, I'm going to do social strategy. It was, how are we going to optimize Facebook? How are we going to then optimize Twitter? Then that was great. We focused on that for a few years, and then suddenly Instagram came out. For some of my largest tourism brands today, Instagram is the #1 source of referral traffic to their sites, to their destinations, and what people are actually referencing. We're finding out today that Snapchat is now becoming one of the fastest discoverers in there. So just as quick as we all got excited, we raised our hands, we got into Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, we got this all down, here comes Snapchat. Now we're finding out in APAC, now it's Line. We're finding out that Weibo, which was the big network from 5 years ago, has been replaced by Line. It's now WeChat. Then we're finding out what is going to be that next social network in 5 years. Now today, it's Periscope. Maybe it's Vine. And it's a whole world of people coming in and using even more and more social platforms and channels. And because of that, there's even more people doing this. There's more participants on different platforms, on different worlds. And it's just creating an entire new social, I don't want to say mess, but a whole new challenge for how we're going to be able to do this. And because of that, there's different content for every platform. When we started social marketing 5 years ago, it was, let's create a post, it's going to go on Facebook and Twitter. Then we create that post, and now it's going to have to go on Instagram, and we have to figure out the filter, the content, the tags from there. Now we have to figure out, how do we create that 6-second video for Vine? How do we do that 30-second Instagram video? And it's just created an entire explosion. And without the right framework, without the right content management systems in place, it can get very overwhelming very quickly. And one of the things that we've seen, and this is really kind of one of the more interesting things on how social actually explodes in a company today, is seeing that it started with social advocacy. It started with, when we started doing social, somebody raised their hand and said, I'm going to do social media. I'm the social media manager. Then that was great. We got some success. We were able to build leads. We were able to build excitement, build engagement on the brand. Then it moved over to social teams. And that's where Now the social media department was built, where there's now 3 people, there's 5 people touching social. Somebody's focusing on Instagram, somebody's focusing on Vine. We're working on a strategy together, and we're really building out those central teams, those central reports. But what I've seen in the shift, and probably some of the most innovative government clients and tourism clients today, is now the social organization. There was an article that our CEO wrote called "The Death of the Social Media Manager," which was in the death of the social media department. And that was really one of the most controversial things, because we're a social media company, that's what we do. But it was never much that the social media manager is no longer relevant to the organization. It's that social now touches all aspects of the organization, that your CEO should be involved, customer service is involved, HR is involved from a recruiting standpoint, marketing is obviously involved, PR is involved, and that's really how we see the success of social in large organizations, is when it moves from that person raising their hand, building social, to building that team, to actually having an entire organization all focused on creating that social management. And that's really the evolution that we've seen, and that's what we've seen as the most successful people that are being able to adopt it. So that's great. Now we've got everybody touching social, everybody's getting involved, we're all excitement, we know why we're doing this, we know why we've got all the social networks and everything's built. And one of the things that we want to put in a framework in right away is building an editorial calendar. So this is really one of the more important parts of building that framework for content management across the organization. In there, you want to have it where it documents your blog, your release dates, the content scheduled for Instagram, for Vine, for your different initiatives, and build it out there. Every single content calendar that we recommend has your title and description of the content. So what is the content going to be? What are we actually going to be writing about for each of those topics? Who is the author? Now that it's no longer me, the social media manager, but the entire company getting involved, who is a different person? Is somebody an expert on that region or that part of the group? Who is the one who's actually going to be responsible for the deadline, the date? Because now that we've got that explosion of 20 social networks are supporting, hundreds of pieces of content every week, actually developing the right assignments and deadlines for each user. And then, of course, the links to the photos, because every single photo should be included in there as part of your editorial planning, and ultimately the channels be promoted on. As I was saying before we would just, the strategy was blast it to Facebook and Twitter, it's the same piece of content. But now that Instagram requires a different format than Vine versus Snapchat versus Line, all having to put that and prioritize in place is becoming a big strategy moving forward. And this is something, and this will be included in the deck later, this is just a sample template of what it can look like, where it has your title, the post that you're going to create in there. It has the author. Who is the one who's actually responsible for creating that content in the organization? The topic. It has the deadline, the publish, the image, and the content. And this is a great way to do this on a weekly, monthly basis, so that everybody in that social organization, everybody who touches social, will be able to have the deadlines, their guideposts in there, because previously they would say that was what the social media team does. Now that it's encompassing everybody in the organization, that's requiring the type of organization and structure to be able to do that. The next is then, from that editorial calendar, is now moving into a content calendar. So it's great that we have this ability to be able to go in, plan that content, get the right assignments, get it in there. But then once that content is created, that creates a new calendar and a new scheduling challenge for you. The way that we recommend that is to document your messaging to promote all of your time, your content, and then organize by the publishing date and the user that's creating that. So creating that central content calendar outside of editorial, moving it to social. Why is that important? One, it helps you manage your editorial strategy. So as you see, okay, these are the scheduled posts for the next week, aligning that with our long-term editorial goals. Does that actually mean that we're going to have this theme? Is there going to be a holiday that we forgot about that our social content calendar is promoting, but it's not part of the organization's editorial calendar? How do we go in and make sure that we're not forgetting dates? Because we can have a lot of editorial vision. That editorial calendar is your vision of the content, everything that we're looking to produce, everything that we're looking to create. But then this actually allows you to be able to go in and realize we've done some great planning, but nothing's going out Tuesday, nothing's going out Thursday. And one of the best practices is that we need to be creating content not only every day, but multiple times a day. Because in this era of social networking, in this era of short attention spans, we're crowded. We only have 1 or 2 chances to actually make that connection every day. And we can only build that connection by pushing out content on a regular basis. And then most importantly, it's identifying your top content. The beauty of social is, once you created a message, you can reuse it. We can still have our editorial calendar dictating our themes, our goals and purposes of content, but then we can reuse that and identify which one actually resonated. Why did it resonate? How do we bring that out to the other groups and putting that whole story together? This right here, this is another example of a calendar template you can use. The way that we recommend it is you have your time, you have different tabs for each of your social networks. From there, you'll have the copy of the message, the link, and then the total number of clicks on that piece of content. So just a great way to have your editorial calendar, your themes, your content, your goal objectives, push that into your social media calendar so it's filtered by social network, the message, and all the engagement and activity from there. Then next is effective scheduling. So yes, Facebook and Twitter, we still want to be able to schedule those messages to multiple networks at one time. That's part of the strategy. Now as we move to video, do we want to schedule it where we're going to schedule YouTube at the same time as our Instagram videos? Do we want to change the different times or different techniques? That's all part of figuring out your scheduling and creating and using a tool such as Hootsuite, such as other platforms, or using some of the native technology to schedule to those different times, those different networks, and putting it all into one place. Then as well, one of the features that we recommend, and everybody who can sign up for a Hootsuite.com free account will get access to a tool called AutoSchedule. This is also featured in some other social networks where it determines the optimal time for your messages to go out. That's a huge time-saving feature because we just showed a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of charts, but if you're still that organization where I raise my hand, I'm the only one doing social media, it's great to then take advantage of a tool that will be able to help you schedule those optimal times. I've sat in on a lot of clients where they've got into fights of, is it going to go out at 2 o'clock? Is it going to go out at 3 o'clock? Is it 4 o'clock? Often it's an argument, it's a shouting, I'm seeing smiles here, I'm sure everybody's been part of that conversation once. It's a hard argument to make without actually having the evidence or the empirical data behind that. So that's where using a tool like us, where you can auto-schedule those messages, will actually give you the empirical data and evidence to be able to prove this is when that message should go live and be pushed. This right here is just a quick example of what it would look like, such as in a Hootsuite, where you have that ability in a platform to be able to see each of your different social networks, which ones have been selected, which ones have the ability to be able to publish the content out, and then that ability to be able to choose your editorial calendar and push from your editorial calendar to your social content calendar. So is it going to be Monday? Is it going to be Tuesday? What day? What time? And that confirmation. So this brings us all back that we can see we have our themes. We know what we want to promote for the organization. It's Awareness Week for us. It's a big promotion and event. Then we could go to the social calendar and actually see, was it scheduled for that? Is it ready to go? So that we can take a step back, know that content's being delivered, and then focus the next week on more editorial content, more planning, and more analysis from there. And then right there, if you just want us to be able to auto-schedule, you can just flick that, and then that helps you with all of the content issues, scheduling issues going forward. And then another great way is that you can also bulk schedule messaging. That's another thing to think about, is that as you build your editorial calendar, as you build your social marketing calendar, you could then put them all in one spreadsheet and upload them at one time to your social networks, or again, using a tool similar to ours that gives you that ability to be able to go in, bulk upload that, so you have less time to worry about, is it my social network calendar and group, and more time to focus on what are our themes, what are our engagement, what are the analytics, which that's going to be a whole entire session tomorrow, because that's also another part of our daily lives as a social media manager, and being able to get it out. And then as well, the other beautiful thing is you do have the ability to be able to review the messages, edit, move them around via the publisher so that if there's breaking news, if you find out that we're promoting it's a beautiful sunny day in our state and then it's a rainy day, you never want those messages to go out. Or maybe that is what you want to go out, where it is a rainy day and you want to remind people that sunshine is here, it's available, and it's time for them to book a trip. That's what gives you the power of a social calendar to be able to make those real-time changes. And when you make those real-time changes, that's how you build that real engagement with your different communities and your members in there. And this is just, again, an example of how your bulk uploading can look. Bulk uploading allows you to be able to build that editorial and social calendar together, where you have that ability to go in and see your date, see the message, see the link, see the social networks, then one click and be able to bulk schedule it from there. So just another great way to be able to help save a lot of time and build that content management framework, which helps you as you build social across the entire organization. This is an example of what your social calendar can look like. A little overwhelming, and that's something that we recommend for everybody to be doing here, but this gives you that clear idea of the messages, the content, when it's going out, and there's a lot of nice features here because one of the things you can do is put in a placeholder and say, hey, we know that this is the anniversary of a major event in our city. This is when we have our annual festival. Put that placeholder in there and make sure, is that actually aligned with all the real-time content that's going out on our behalf? So just another nice way to be able to really organize everything you're looking to do and be able to really understand the contents going out and build that whole calendar. The next one I think is a really important one, is that everybody today should be monitoring specific hashtags. Hashtags are the opportunity to not only be able to engage with people at that level, but it's to be able to actually understand what's going on. So being able to see that we've promoted a great hashtag. We told everybody to visit our destination, our city, but really, what are actually people saying about that? There's both good and there's both bad. One of the examples I will always bring up, and my client will fully admit this was a failure, it's a little bit outside the tourism world, but it was when the NYPD offered the hashtag MyNYPD. Who is familiar with that story from there? That was a great opportunity because they actually internally don't view that as a failure. They view that as a way to actually see what were people resonating and saying about us and our perception. And then how do we actually counter that using an editorial calendar and a social calendar to be able to create that message? So they saw all the negative comments about the police brutality, the photos. Yes, it was embarrassing. The tabloids had a great time running with that. Their counter was to build that calendar to be able to say, this is what people associate with us. So let's start thinking about long-term, over the year, 2 year, the editorial themes around that. How do we then build those themes, push that into our social calendar, and be able to counter that? So monitoring hashtags, great way to be able to see what are people saying about our destination and our location. The other thing is, it's a great way to be able to crowdsource content. So we all hit writer's block. We all struggle every day trying to figure out our editorial and social calendars in here. This is a great way of seeing what are people associating with us on the positive side. Are we finding out that we're a beach destination, but everybody's talking about our water park or the amusement park? That's a great way to see in real time what are people associating with us. And that's what's exciting, that this is an opportunity that you can do market research in seconds. You can type in a hashtag and see what people are saying on a real-time basis about you. That's a very powerful way to actually figure out the content, as opposed to the old days of planning out a newspaper, planning out an ad, hoping that people are going to like it, hoping that people are going to resonate well, and having months of planning, months of research, months of analysis, as opposed to typing in a hashtag, typing in the city, seeing the sentiment, seeing the conversations, and then using that to fulfill your editorial goals, which goes to your social calendar, which ultimately then goes to a successful real-time social strategy. And the other thing, and we'll talk about this in a few minutes, it's a great way to be able to respond and inform during an emergency situation. There's a lot of times where a hashtag is the source of information during a tragedy. In the city of New York, when we had the Harlem gas line explosion, everybody rushed to that hashtag to be able to see what was going on. That was a great way for the city to be able to respond and use that as the official information source, as well as for people that were visiting that area to be able to see, is it safe? Should I go there? Should I change my plans? And using that as a way to do that. So always recommend monitor multiple hashtags, always keep your eye out on them, and use that to be able to identify, engage, and crowdsource everything you're looking for. This is an example right here of the way to be able to monitor some of the hashtags in your stream. So following the conversation at the conference, this is a great way. So you guys have done a great job being able to actually engage with people on those streams, seeing what they're talking about. And Susan, if you're here, this is where we were able to identify that you were on your way here, flying a nice giant Qantas jet, and a great way to be able to engage, a great way to be able to get people excited on what you're doing. And when the official conference or the Visitors Bureau or that organization goes in and likes it and favorites it, that's an opportunity to create a relationship. What we do ultimately at Hootsuite, our belief is every single message is an opportunity to create a relationship. That's what we're all about here. That's what we're all about as destination marketers is how do we use every message and build relationships at scale? Can one message affect 100, 200, 1,000 people and build that community and build that connection? That's what we live and breathe every day at Hootsuite on. And that's where monitoring a hashtag gives you that opportunity every day. So as a social media marketer, to have that type of ability to create those relationships at scale is A, almost unheard of in any form of marketing, and B, an unprecedented opportunity that one person can really change the perception of a lot of people. And then, it's even seeing things like following your industry hashtag. So following something like tourism, following something like adventure sports, following something like destination weddings, being able to see what are other people saying. Maybe that's a way for us to influence our content. Maybe that's a way for us to be able to get people excited and also just see what are other cities doing and what are some of the other themes out there. Using those themes, that goes back to your editorial calendar. That editorial calendar allows you to plan that long-term vision, push that into your social calendar, and start building success with all your social. And just right here, destination marketing, even just something as simple as that. Building a practice of every day going to that stream and looking at it and seeing what people are saying. It might not influence all your calendar decisions. It might not influence all your editorial decisions every day, but it's an opportunity to be able to go in and be able to at least see what's being said, the perception, and maybe even an opportunity to retweet, engage, or even just see what other people are doing. And then it's also the ability to crowdsource content. So one of the things that was really powerful was after the tragedy that happened in Boston, they were able to then take those hashtags the next year and use that as a way to crowdsource and engage the content and people in their local communities. So they were able to use the hashtag Boston Marathon, but then see how other people are responding in there, other cities, other groups, and they were able to go in and actually share some of that content and use that as a way to be able to build even more meaningful relationships. So being able to see what are other people in the area sharing photos on there, people are sharing their success, and being able to put that into the calendar, build the excitement, build the group, and get it all out in there. The next thing we do is it's great to monitor, it's great to be able to have that editorial calendar, it's great to be able to have all that excitement. But then as we scale out, we realize as we move away from that social advocate to those teams, to those groups, now it changes to move into that social organization. And as we get more people touching social, as customer service is involved, as our sales team is involved, as other people are getting involved, then you need to have that ability to be able to assign and track the success of all the activity you're doing with your hashtags. And I challenge you every day, if you monitor hashtags, it's an opportunity to create those relationships. But is it going to be overwhelming when you're following 5 or 10? Is that meaning you're going to need a social media marketing assistant, somebody else from communications getting involved? If that's the case, how do we divide up the work so we're not duplicating that? The last thing we want is 10 people in the company. We're all believers that we got to monitor hashtags. We're excited for it. And then we use that as an opportunity to go in, and everybody's looking at the same 10 hashtags, and now we're just duplicating the work. That's where the ability to be able to assign and route messages becomes critical as you build out all of that framework. Specifically, the ability to be able to send any messages. So if it was somebody saying, this is great, look at this great photo going in there, making sure that the legal team is able to review that content and say this is something that is on brand. The last thing that we want to do is get excited, share a piece of content, find out it's completely against the brand that we're trying to pursue, and we get ourselves in trouble, or we find that social is now going to take a back seat to everything else we do. All it takes is one bad retweet, one bad engagement, one bad piece of content shared, and all of the hard work, all of the initiatives, everything we put into place can fall apart right there. So being able to have the proper permissions, assignment, and collaboration becomes a very critical part as you build your social content framework. The next thing is we recommend the sharing streams. So you can go in there and you want to eliminate that duplication. So saying, okay, we've built our social organization now. The CEO is going to look at it one stream a day at this hashtag. Fantastic. Then how do we have it where the marketing teams or the sales teams or the PR teams are viewing the streams, assigning those different streams, and making that part of their daily practice. Making it so that we're all social marketers here, we live and breathe this every day, but how do we get it so that we feel comfortable other people sharing that responsibility? Saying your daily practice today is you're going to spend 5 minutes assigning this stream, monitoring this stream, or 10 minutes a day of this, and you want to assign those multiple messages so you feel people are feeling comfortable about it, and you're building more of that social excitement. You also want to be able to use this to actually see, hey, is this an emergency? Somebody's complaining about a hotel or saying that they had a bad experience with a cab. That's an opportunity where if that person says that message, it's the equivalent of going in there and you not answering the phone with millions of people, hanging up with that person with millions of people watching. This is an opportunity to be able to go in and track that, because all it takes is one bad experience from one bad vendor, one bad place that can ruin the entire perception of your city, your state, your destination. Being able to track and say, we've identified a problem, and then being able to see, did we resolve? Did the person say they were resolved? Did that person feel comfortable? That's part of being able to really see the success and turn that negative into a positive. But if we see that message, we sent it off via email, we hope somebody read it, we hope somebody saw it, and nothing happens, that creates an opportunity there to really hurt your perception. Or if somebody had a bad experience with a cab and you assigned it, you sent them a message, you sent them a refund and a personal apology, that can instantly turn their entire vacation around, their entire trip, and change the entire perception from one message. So one little simple thing is assigning, resolving, and measuring that can really change everything around. And it's also managing the different levels. So who's allowed to reply? Who's allowed to respond? It's great if we've got our support, we got the big budget, we got 2 interns. I'm building my social organization. Do we want to actually have them going out and interacting every day? Maybe, maybe not. Because all it takes is that one poor message that we all know those stories of one poor communication, and that can cause an entire mess. That's where if you have the ability to manage permission levels, you can review every reply to a Facebook comment, every reply to a tweet, every single time they want to favorite that, and ensure that you're staying consistent to the brand, but also creating that positive relationship that people are looking for. This is, again, just another example of how your assignment workflow can look, where you have the ability with two options. One, a message comes in, you can either assign it to an individual team member, or you have that ability to be able to assign that to an entire team. So that's part of what you're looking at your content management strategy is, do we want to have people go in and respond to everybody and have one person raise their hand and say, I will be the one on the team? Or do you want to set it up that you go in and say to that person, you're the one who's responsible for this, you're the one who's going to reply, and building that consistent framework. That's a critical part in thinking about your strategies today. The other part that we always forget about is that security becomes a major component of this. A common theme I've been saying all along in your content management, all it takes is one bad tweet, one inappropriate comment, one bad reply, and those 3, 4, 5 years of hard work on social gets blown up. People are not happy with your brand. It's coming in from your management team. People are getting nervous on there, and that can really hurt all the activity. So some of the things that we recognize is understanding the threats of hacking. I encourage every single person in here to create a 2-step verification system on each of your social networks. Doing an audit every 3 to 6 months of, is it the right phone number that can reset the account? Is it the right email address? All it takes is somebody, one of the largest defense accounts in the world was registered to a yahoo.com email. All it took was a hijacker to go in, break into an old dormant Yahoo account, and be able to reset the account and change all the passwords, the messages, and there. So I highly encourage that to be part of your overall security strategy and incorporate that into your overall framework. Also recommend the ability to search and look for rogue accounts. I urge you all at least once a month, once every 6 months, to go in and run an audit of every single variation of your account name. Go to Facebook, search for every single mention of your state, your city. You'll find that people, it could be hijackers, it could be just a prankster, they love nothing more that somebody will search for your city or your name and come to your fake account and have negative pictures, parodies, or comments in there, and that can hurt your brand because all it takes is that one person to think that's your brand, they send you a reply, they send you a comment, it comes back, and then they view that as the official response. And that was that opportunity for them to create a relationship and hurt you and not hurt you, and you're not even having a view. So I encourage an audit of all of that. Also recommend securing your publishing environment. You know, it's another struggle. We love all these shiny new tools. We love all the different social tools out there. Maybe our intern, who was the first person in charge of the account, set up all those accounts, added all that access. Well, that's a security threat. Because all it takes is for one of those services that maybe 4 years ago you were connected to, got broken into, somebody was able to do a password reset on there, and now they can publish to your account. And again, it's that ability to, for them to go in, create those poor receptions, and be able to actually really hurt all the activity on your brand. Some of the other things we recommend is implementing single sign-on. I'm sure we all in our companies have to deal with that today, logging into our intranet portal, going in, having to fill out all the different passwords and access that. Look at putting that to your social networks. Look at it that instead of having to rely on just a shared username or password, implementing that with your current sign-on system so that when a person leaves the organization, they lose their email access. You know what they should lose next? Their social access. All too often, we're comfortable with you join, get your email, you leave, you lose your email. But the new social strategy moving forward is you join a company, you get your email, you get your social. The day you're gone, you lose your email, you lose your social. And then we also recommend there is different ways out there to filter your content. I highly recommend using the Facebook filter, highly recommend using security solutions like Nextgate, which can actually go in and moderate any inappropriate comments. So one of your staff members is having a bad day, they start cursing at people on your wall, you can actually disable that. You can actually remove cursing on your messages or your inbound messages, and I highly encourage you to do that because we can do all the planning, all the social analysis we want, but all it takes is one person, one bad day to create all of that. Don't believe me, we all know the story from Chrysler from many years ago where the person wanted to know how many effing bad drivers there were in Detroit. Not exactly the best way to build the brand, but I can tell you internally, I've worked with that team post that, it was a nice sales opportunity, not gonna lie, is that destroyed 3 to 4 years of goodwill of social with one bad tweet. And we're all working so hard to build those destinations and those communities, and all it takes is that one poor way, and it all goes away. This happens in large companies, it happens all the time. The other thing I recommend too is to simplify your content is one of the things that's available to you if you were to use a Hootsuite as a content suggestions tool. There's other ones out there like Crowd Content, Content Gems, Content Sources, where they will actually recommend content themes for you. So we're looking at the editorial calendar a month out. We have no idea what we're going to do next week. We're struggling here. You could type in a keyword, use something like a trend spotter or a nextology, and it'll tell you what other people are talking about on the social web, and it'll actually recommend that content for you. Same with Hootsuite. You can give us your topics, your themes, and we'll actually recommend content articles for you to post and be able to incorporate that into your editorial calendar, which will ultimately turn into your social calendar. And the other thing we recommend is sharing pre-approved messages. Get your staff excited about, hey, we're going to be launching this major new content or this major new tourism promotion. Let's get a whole asset of pre-approved content and messages and have them push it on their social channels, because your employees can be some of the best advocates you have for all of your brand, and there's no reason not to, especially as we build our social presence. This is just an example of what a social content suggestions tool can look like. And this is an example of how some of your content library templates can be. Filter it by tag or piece of content and use that to organize your pre-approved messages. And even as a quick opportunity to be able to go in and let people know this is okay to use, feel free to share it, click, things are good. And then this is just an example of how amplification works. This is actually during the bombing in the city of Boston, where they had, these are the official messages, this is what's shared, this is how it looks in an emergency, this is how it could look in a promotion, but this is where, these are the official messages, this is how we build that. Here's how we use social to reach 100,000, 1 million people at a low cost level. And the final thing that we recommend is we are actually just today launching an employee advocacy solution through Hootsuite, where if you wanted to have people to have a mobile application that allows you to share the pre-approved content and assets on their local channels, great solution like that. University of Michigan is using this to promote all of their events, their activities, their football events, all through their app, and having it with their employees, their alumni, and faculty promoting their messages. And I highly encourage that as a major strategy for you moving forward.